Well, Sea of Puppies is essentially a sea story. It's a story of how a number of very different characters find themselves on this ship, a two-masted schooner, which is sailing from Calcutta in 1838. It's sailing from Calcutta to Mauritius. Most of the people on this ship are indentured workers. Indentured workers traveling from Bihar in northern India to Mauritius, where they're going to be taken on to various plantations and so on. And of course, northern Bihar was at this point the world's largest poppy growing region. It was, a place where an enormous amount of opium came from. It was impossible to get away from it because I was writing about these people who were leaving this part of Bihar in order to go to Mauritius. And every time I tried to research their backgrounds, there was opium. I mean, it was perfectly clear that these areas were the most important opium growing areas. I was about a year into the book when I thought that it would be a trilogy, because I kind of realized at that point that the stories I was trying to tell they were just too complicated and also too interesting for me. I didn't want to hurry through them. I wanted to take my time. I wanted to linger on the details and so on. So I thought I'm going to do this over as much time as is necessary and over as much space as is necessary. So, I thought I'll do it as a trilogy. One of the conditions I set myself when I was writing the book is that I'd use very few words that are not in the Oxford English Dictionary. And it's a strange thing, I mean, so many of these words seem unfamiliar to people today, but they're actually all in the Oxford English Dictionary. I mean, 80% of these words are in the Oxford English Dictionary. If you just Google them, you'll see that, these were actually once very commonplace words. So, what has actually happened is that the English language has changed. I mean, I think that in the 19th century, the English language had a much bigger sort of input from Asian languages and from Hindustani, from Chinese, from many languages. And these influences have slowly been, as it were, pushed out of the language, actually, strangely enough, in the 20th century. For this book, I went to many libraries, of course, but I also traveled to Mauritius, I traveled to China, I spent time at the Greenwich Maritime Museum here. But I think the single most exciting aspect of the research was just learning to sail, or trying to learn to sail, I should say, because I would call myself anything but a good sailor, but, just the experience of being on the water on a sail ship was something very exciting. The interesting thing, of course, is that so much is written about the sea, and on all these ships there were probably at least a few Indian sailors, but very little is written about the sea from an Asian point of view, And to me that was what was really exciting in a way, to be writing about a different ocean, the Indian Ocean, and to be thinking about it from the perspective of India outwards. For myself, I love nautical fiction, and I love, for example, Barry Unsworth's Sacred Hunger, which won the Booker Prize. It's one of the great novels, really. And there's, it's an interesting thing that, both in England and in America, wonderful sea stories were told in the 19th century and indeed in the 20th century,